Hey dog people, you know I love talking all things muzzle related. Well, I'm so excited to announce that I've partnered with Trust Your Dog, custom dog gear for you and your dog. Trust Your Dog muzzles are completely customizable for your needs and your unique dog. Muzzles are great for a variety of uses, such as allergies, requesting space from triggers, post-op site protection, and of course, bite prevention. Each Trust Your Dog muzzle is expertly fit and handmade, with the choice of bright colors and bling to break down the muzzle stigma. Trust Your Dog's mission is to give humans comfort in knowing their dog is safe, all by empowering humans to trust their dogs. Head on over to trustyourdog.com and use my code FREED10. That's FREED10 for 10% off. Use code FREED10 for 10% off your custom muzzle at trustyourdog.com. Welcome to Dog Training Bytes. The show where canine professionals share their key takeaways, big aha moments, and hardest lessons learned from working with dogs. I'm Madison, certified dog trainer and behavior consultant, and dogs are my life. Every day I get to coach guardians and other trainers into a deeper understanding of canine behavior. But let's face it, sometimes dog training really bites. And that's okay, because when it does, we learn a lot. This podcast is all about sharing the lessons learned from experience, because the stories of when it got tough or when we made a mistake, that's when we learn the lessons worth learning. And it's time we share those with the world. I'll be talking to dog trainers and other pet professionals about times that working with dogs, well, bit. Not literally. Maybe literally. What's most important here on this show, what did they walk away with? What did they learn? How did it shape their approach today? Welcome to Dog Training Bytes, the show where pet professionals share personal lessons that you won't find in any textbook. Today's guest is Maddie Messina, a certified applied animal behaviorist and the founder of Paws for Thought Dog Training. With over 8 years of experience and a master's in animal behavior, Maddie helps dogs and their people navigate complex behavior challenges like fear, leash reactivity, and separation anxiety with thoughtful, science-based support. She specializes in working with puppies, adolescent dogs, and urban families, always with a focus on strengthening the human-animal bond. Maddie's work has been featured in outlets like FamilyPupz, the Farmer's Dog blog, Reader's Digest, and Spruce Pets, and I am so excited to have her here today. Hey, Maddie, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm excited. I got another Maddie. Got another one.
I know. I love when I have a fellow Maddie to chat with.
Is it a Madeline? Is it a Madison?
I am a Madeline, yes.
Okay. Yep. So this is always interesting for me when I have someone that I've connected with through social media or through networking where I don't actually know the answer. So this is fun for me to not find out the answers to these ahead of time and get to learn this live. But I would love to hear about your personal dog or dogs.
Yeah, we have a dog named Kismet currently. She's actually coming up on a year and a half with us. Yes, her name, I'm obsessed with her name. It's
It's a
the coolest.
great name. It's so
I
cool.
didn't choose it. Like the shelter staff worker that chose it for her is genius.
Amazing.
And for those people who don't know, like Kismet, means it was fated or something like that. So yes, her name
How
is great.
beautiful.
And when I tell you the story about how we came to getting her, then the name even really makes more sense. So at the time, I was working at a shelter as a per diem behavior specialist, and I knew I was looking for a dog, but my fiance now was definitely not ready for a dog. He's never had one in his life. And I love a scruffy dog. If the more they look like a dumpster diver, the better for me. And then B, I had previously adopted a rescue dog from another rescue in New York City who ended up having really severe separation anxiety. And he now lives full time with my parents because he's really comfortable in their home and can be left alone for multiple hours in their home. And when I was ready to bring him to my home, I was like, that's not fair. When I was working in the shelter, I was really looking for dogs that looked very relaxed in their kennel and didn't show signs of stress between outings, and she was one of them. I grabbed her out. She was fantastic. She loved to train. She was really engaged. And immediately I was like, wow, I want to foster this dog. So we fostered her, and obviously the first night she was just complete decompression mode. And then after that, she really became like a terror in our house.
Mm.
And I'm saying this as I thought I had my shit down when it came to training and managing high arousal adolescent dogs. But her behavior was so intense that after a few days of living with it, I said, this isn't normal. She was leaving bruises. And
Mm.
there was very little time where she could actually settle in the home. And for a few weeks, we were doing all the things. Like, we weren't overloading her with activity and enrichments. Like, we were working on settling. We had all the things in place and she wasn't getting better. And so I was like, okay, this is probably going to be something that needs to be treated through medication, at least for the short term. And we had a little bit of back and forth. She ended up going back to the shelter for a little, and they placed her with a different family who had more of a backyard setting, lived in a quieter area, and she was
Because
returned.
you're in New York, right?
Yes, where I'm in Manhattan in Gramercy,
Right.
so we're not in the loudest neighborhood, but it's definitely not quiet.
And it's a difficult, challenging urban environment. No matter what, I think being in New York City for a dog is going to
Yes.
have its challenges.
Yeah, I might get some blowback from this, but I tell people that New York City is probably one of, if not the most challenging place to raise a dog.
I would
Just
agree.
hard
I would
stop.
agree. And other large metropolitan areas.
Yes,
Recently was working with
any
someone in Toronto, and it was a very similar challenge.
yes, I would say any busy city, and New York City is one of the for sure more busy cities
Yeah.
that I know of.
And a lot of dogs. A lot of
Yes.
dogs.
Yes. Yeah. Luckily, we don't have she does not have any problems with dogs. She loves dogs. So that's like her one saving grace. But anyways, so they sent her to another family in a different environment, and she was returned within 3 days
Hmm.
with record of a bite because she broke skin.
Yeah.
And at that point, the shelter was like, you're one of the people that we trust. Like, why don't you take her for a longer foster and we'll work with you, potentially adding some medication, but not all of the meds that we would potentially see her use. And we got to a point where I was reporting to them on a weekly basis. I was data tracking, and we saw some improvements, but not she would qualify to be adopted out by other than so got to the point basically they said to us if she comes back she's probably not going to make it out of the shelter, and that's when I said okay, guess we're stuck with her. And we got her into a veterinary behaviorist. She's on lots of different meds. We have made tons of progress in some ways, and in other ways we're maybe not focusing so much on those things, but she's a lemon. She's a tough case. I don't think any non-behavior professional could have this dog in her home. She's got medical issues. It's not even just
Hmm.
the behavior stuff. And
Yeah.
that is one of the things that I've really pulled apart from like my experience with her. And I really harp on it now so much with my clients because she has hip and elbow dysplasia. And
Hmm.
when she's also two and a half, right? She's a maniac. And so when she runs around like a psychopath, she hurts. And then
Yeah.
as a result, her noise sensitivity shoots through the roof, and then she doesn't want to go on walks anymore. So it's this kind of like negative feedback loop and this never-ending cycle. And yeah, I'm learning a lot with her, and she's making so much progress and has been such a monumental dog for me to have in my life because now it also gives me so much sympathy when I talk to other parents who are in similar situations because I'm like, yeah, I've been there and it's truly awful. And I will not diminish what you're feeling because I'm a dog trainer and I'm sitting on the outside thinking that I'm better than you because I'm
Right.
not.
And you lived through it not that long ago. You were living in it and are
Yeah, I
still
mean,
living in it.
she puts me to work every single day.
Yep, that they do. That they do.
Yeah.
Okay, Maddie, what is the story that you brought for us today? I'm excited for this one.
Oh, okay. So it's not so much a story, but more like an amalgamation of things that I've been noticing on social media that maybe concern me, maybe confuse me. And I think that not a lot of people are talking about it.
Yeah.
So, dog training in general has obviously skyrocketed as a profession in the past 20 years. And dog
Mhm.
science in general has skyrocketed in the past 40 years. Like, people, scientists, were not researching dogs. This is really like the profession itself and the dog industry is growing at an insane pace. And I think with social media, we use that all of us use social media to market our services. And at the same time, we do try to put out information that might be helpful to other trainers, other clients, vets. And I think that what has been concerning me is some of the information that I see being put out, especially coming from having an doing a BS in animal behavior and doing a master's in animal behavior and constantly reading animal textbooks and behavior research. The specific thing that I wanted to talk about is this this information that was going around and is still circulating. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's just funny to me. So for a while, there was a really big, because I'm also a separation anxiety, I did the certification through Julie Naismith, and I follow a lot of separation people on Instagram. And for a while, there was this factoid going around, and I'm not going to remember exactly the numbers, but it was like puppies need to sleep between 18 and 20 hours a day.
I've heard this. Yes.
Yes. I feel like everyone has seen this fact on some
Yes.
type of carousel or post of a trainer. And I'm not saying I disagree with it, but I saw it and I was like, huh, where is this information coming from? Where did
Mhm.
we find this? And why is now everyone saying it? Was there like a big conference and someone got up there and showed some research? And so then I did some digging because I was just like, but where is this coming from?
So when you were digging in, were you looking at specifically what is the optimal sleep time for a puppy, or were you looking more related to kenneling? I'm curious.
Sleep time.
Okay, okay.
Yes. So I was looking at like typical sleep for a puppy, what like they have some research on sleep pattern for adult dogs, and I could
Okay.
find that, but
Yeah.
I could not find wherever this information for puppies was coming from. I couldn't find the peer-reviewed source. Maybe it's in a textbook somewhere, but I really think that someone just came up with this number.
Yeah, I
Maybe
don't
it's
know that that
probably not
exists, right?
arbitrary.
I
Yeah.
mean, but like maybe it is because if you weren't able to find any type of reference or resource or research, maybe it was originally created as an arbitrary, maybe not, but things get passed so quickly and so rapidly. And like when you said that to me, my like inner knowing of, okay, dogs need a lot of sleep
Yeah.
and puppies need more sleep than adult dogs, that my sort of internal knowing was just like, yeah, that could make sense. That could make sense, but do we really know?
Yeah, I think when we all look at that, we're like, yes, that makes sense. But I just was like, where is this coming from? Because it's
Hmm.
everywhere now.
Hmm.
Everyone's talking about this optimal sleep number for puppies. And I was literally banging my head against the wall. And I even reached out to one of my favorite vets in the city and I was like, hey, do you have this number?
Right.
Like, where did this number come from? And she literally said to me, I have no idea. And it is very possible that this number is sitting in a textbook somewhere and there's a reference, right? That
Right.
I didn't read that textbook. But it's just this concept that we have all of these people following us, these vets, these clients, other trainers. And I think that there's also a lot of movement towards using a science-based approach in what we do, right? A lot of people have moved away from punishment because there's a lot of research suggesting punishment isn't great for dogs long term. So I think there's this kind of mismatch in trainers in general, and maybe it's right, like the level of trainer that you are. Like I do solidly believe that there's a difference between potentially a CBDT versus a CPCC, like a trainer versus a consultant, just in like
Yeah.
their breadth of knowledge.
Yep.
But I think as a community, we have to get better at questioning what's out there, what we're seeing,
Yeah.
rather than just saying, oh, that makes sense, and copying and pasting to our future Instagram.
I
Like,
think maybe even being willing to speak generally when we don't have the specifics. and be willing to be a little bit ambiguous sometimes and say, yeah, puppies need more sleep than adult dogs. And also, like, with the caveat of every dog is different, and this puppy is going to need more sleep than that puppy. And this dog is going to need more sleep than that dog. And is there a range? Totally. But there isn't a, this is optimal for every dog out there. That would be ridiculous.
I do also think it comes from that innate like feeling that we all have where when a client asks us a question, we want to have the answer for them. Um,
Absolutely. Because they're
but I do
paying us
think,
for our knowledge, right? Like,
of
we want to
course,
provide that.
but I do think we have to get more comfortable with the concept of saying, I'm not 100% sure on this. Let me go back and do some research. Or this is what I believe,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure if there is like support for this in data-driven support for this. Not that I'm saying that everything we do has to be supported by research, but certainly if we're all going to start putting like we are science-based trainers on our
Right.
website, that does imply that you are doing some low level of investigation on your own as to what the research suggests.
And I think that there's also something in framing when something is anecdotal. I will say to my clients, okay, this is based off of my own personal experience and the hundreds and thousands of dogs I've personally worked with. I feel like I have enough data to be able to share that with them and say, this has been my experience, but I always frame it that way. So they
Yeah.
know it's not fact and they know it's not science. And they know that if they went to a different trainer and asked the same question, they would get a different answer. And that to me is of equal value. There is equal value in this like anecdotal experience and being willing to share this. I was talking about this actually yesterday with my trainer friend Jerry Sheriff and Denise Fenzi about the 90% and the 10% and how it is important when we are speaking generally to the public. I think that we do acknowledge, okay, what I'm talking about is the 90% of dogs. 90% of the dogs that I've worked with, most of the dogs that I've worked with, this has been my experience. And I think that there is still value in talking about the 10% and talking about the exceptions and talking about lessons that were learned in the dogs, in the kismets that come through and totally are a crucible for us and challenge us in every way. And it's okay, 90% of dogs are not going to have this problem, but this is what I learned in working with this particular dog. And again, knowing that is separate from science. I still personally see a lot of value there. And maybe the balance is in the way in which we're sharing it, the scale in which we're sharing it, and the way that we're framing that. I like to share that in one-on-one conversations with my clients where I feel like this is appropriate for them right now where they are and their dog and their life. And to put it out in the world maybe wouldn't be responsible because the 90% might take it and grab it. But when I'm talking to other professionals, I do want to be talking about these 10%. I do want to be talking about, okay, but there was this nuanced dog that like really made me have to investigate in a different way or branch out into different species to understand something differently. And so I think that maybe for me personally, it's not about what we share, but it's in where we're sharing it and how we're framing it.
Yeah, I think it's how we're framing it and making the effort to be continually curious.
I like that too, being like ready to question things, but doing it respectfully. You weren't like, who said that? Who said that? I'm coming for you. You were like,
Yeah,
where did this come from? And
exactly.
you're digging and you're digging and you're looking and it's nowhere. And that to me is really interesting. And I think it's also a good skill to cultivate is research. And
Yeah.
it's not intuitive for a lot of people. Not everybody, actually, I would say a very small percentage of people have scientific academia experience to even know how to research that. I hear peer-reviewed study and I'm like, because I'm just not a science girl. And I've had to teach myself how to read abstracts and how to understand what I'm looking at. And that's something that maybe needs to be a part of the education for the general dog populace, not to be at a master's level, but like how can we make these research studies actually mean something to them?
Yeah, I think that's you raise a great point. I had a very different start than a lot of the dog trainers that I speak with. Like most people who have their CPDT didn't start with animal
Masters
behavior.
in animal behavior.
That's not how most people get going. So I have that background and it does push me to say like, why aren't we doing more of this?
I would love for that. If that's something that is on your heart at any time to do, I would love for that to be something to see out there in the dog world is people who have this like deep level of scientific literacy, which is not me, really translating and creating accessibility in that information because I'm an artsy fartsy girl, right? Like I took the minimum number of science classes I could at every opportunity and took jewelry making instead. That was me. So it's something that it takes a lot of concentrated effort for me to take in that information in that format. I'm also neurodivergent and I struggle with information in certain formats. And so maybe we've identified a gap. And I feel like we're not the first ones to call this out, right? But how do we make science accessible?
Yeah, I will say you're not the first person to think about this. And I also want to, I really don't want people to think that I'm saying everyone needs to be reading all of the literature. But I think you need to be aware of, you need to be questioning what you're reading on social media
Yeah.
constantly. And there are people who have done this. Christina Spalding has a program called Research Bytes, and it's a membership where you sign up and she reads the research for you. And then she puts on a presentation that's monthly. And you get to sit there and ingest all of this information. And the group talks about, okay, how does this apply to what we're training? How does this apply to our behavior modification practices?
Mm.
It's a fantastic resource. I'm involved and love it because, yeah, I don't have time to sit around and read all of the,
We're not full-time
the publications
scientists.
that are coming out.
We
I can
can't
barely
be.
keep up with like my CE for Fear
Right.
Free.
I would love to see the certification councils getting involved and on board with something like that to be able to provide that type of educational community for their certificates because I see that as a gap. I see that as a real gap.
It is certainly a gap, and I think that's a great point, is that like the certifying boards could say, hey, we're offering this to you as a chance for you to learn this. And this goes beyond some of the stuff that you're reading on Instagram or even some of the stuff that you get in conferences. Although a lot of
Mhm.
the stuff in conferences is great and you do get a lot of science background there, but there could be, rather than just one conference a year where you get brain dumped on and it's so hard
It's
to
too much
ingest
for
everything.
me personally. I really
Oh,
struggle with
same.
that. Yeah.
Same. Almost never go to conferences in person because I quite literally cannot handle it for my brain. I'm an online participant, but
Right. Yeah.
I think that with so many people dog training and becoming dog trainers and excited about this profession, we need to just be reminding everyone, and that includes the clients that we work with. I always say to my clients, the internet is crazy. Really be thoughtful about what you're ingesting and where it's coming from. And if you're concerned,
It's not just a lot of information that they have to sift through. It is conflicting
right.
information. That's where people come, like when I hear on consults over and over again, I'm so confused. I'm so confused. I read one thing that said one thing, and the next day I read something that said literally the exact opposite. So it's not just, oh, there's some misinformation or a lot of misinformation. It is straight up conflicting, and people are so confused.
Yeah. And I think that I remind myself this 1,000 times over. I remind the people that I work with this because I think there can be a lot of frustration when, especially in New York City, there's so many dog trainers here. There's a high chance that maybe your client just didn't click with you or vibe with you and they go to someone else and they did really well with them. And then you hear back from that trainer or something came down through the grapevine and you're like, huh, oh, that stinks. Or if you're sharing a client with maybe someone who primarily does like sitting and boarding and you do the private training and you hear from the client, the trainer said, why would I teach it that way? The way Maddie wants you to teach it, we should be doing it this way. And I always say, there's 100 different ways to get to an end behavior, an end goal. Most of them are not wrong. They're just different, right? And so I think we have to think about that, right? There's so many different like ideas in the media that our clients are consuming. They're not all wrong. They just might be different. They might conflict, but they could still get you to the right goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it all circles back to just like staying curious, being open-minded, and I guess just having really good communication with your clients, which isn't something that we talked about, but is
Yeah.
really important is to have that like trust and relationship to be able to have that communication.
Yeah, that's something that I will always be working on. And I feel like I always like this, that's the thing that I think about when I think about client work is a lot of people used to say, "Oh, I got into the dog training world because I didn't like people." And I'm like, that's not the point.
That's not great because actually there are very few or maybe no dogs living in homes by themselves and are
Right.
hiring trainers. It's really the people that we need to help. And I think it's impossible to change dog behavior without changing the human behavior first.
100%.
So, Maddie, is there anything else you would like the listeners to know about you or what you do?
We are, as you mentioned, a private dog training company in New York. We are now running group classes, which is an exciting new addition. And
Yeah.
hopefully, once the summer wraps up, we will be moving towards some more group classes that are geared towards specific behavior issues. So
Yeah.
we do have a reactive dogs group class running currently, but I'm excited to hopefully announce a resource guarding group class, which will be a fun
Amazing.
change.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, yeah, of course, if they want to work with us privately, we do in-home training. So feel free to contact us if you need us.
Amazing. You can connect with Maddie on Instagram at Paws for Thought Training, and you can find more information and a link to her work in the show notes. Thanks for joining us in the world of Dog Training Bites, where every challenge brings a lesson worth sinking our teeth into. See you next time. Dog Training Bites was created, produced, and edited by Madison Simpson. You can connect with me on Instagram at Dog Training Bytes, that's BYTES, and at Freed by Training. For information on today's guest and resources for help with your dog or dog training education, visit www.dogtrainingbytes.stream. Looking for more? Listen to my other show, Unpacked, a clinical dog training podcast co-hosted by Sailor Jerry the dog trainer and produced by Straight Up Dog Talk LLC.